You know, I tend to avoid EPs when it comes to my review schedule, for the same reason a lot of game reviewers tend to not cover DLC expansions, or movie reviewers tend to not cover straight-to-video entries. They kinda aren't all that important. Don't get me wrong, we have gotten some incredible EPs over the years. Hell, some of the best albums ever are EPs, but more often than not, they just kind of serve as an in-betweeny thing for fans to drink in while waiting for a new album, or something of that nature. They're not meant to be taken all that seriously, necessarily, which is why it always kind of baffles me when people make requests for EPs. I mean, wouldn't you rather wait for the band to release something a bit more substantial? I mean, come on. But given that my schedule has been— oh my god, kill me now, Jesus! I'm open-minded to anything that helps alleviate that, so sure, I'll take on this short little EP. How bad could— wait, Jesus, this thing is awesome! I had no idea who McCafferty was before this release, but man, oh man, do I want more after hearing Thanks, Sorry, Sure. How to sum it up? Okay, to all you people that got crazy psyched and pestered me relentlessly about Remo Drive earlier this year, okay, this is the band you all should have been pestering me about. Like, god damn, this is a beautiful slice of pop punk. This is like if Blink-182 crossed with the Front Bottoms and had just enough car seat headrest left over to serve as garnish. Oh, it's lovely. The guitar work, especially the lead work, is really bright and catchy, and the drums are all over the mark and interestingly laid out, and the vocals are, well, very pop-punky, but it fits the style of music, and their vocalist has a great flow, and writes with the same kind of doofy style that makes artists like Will Toledo and Brian Sella so charming. It works. But again, given that it's an EP, I simply don't have much to talk about here, but this is an EP that actually really accomplishes what I feel is an EP's main goal. It makes me wish I had more. Apparently the guys funded this thing through Indiegogo, and A, congrats on raising the money and coming through for your fans, and B, if these guys were to start another crowdfunding project to get another full album off the ground, hell yeah, I would drop into that. Sans the weird rendition of Somewhere Only We Know. I mean, come on guys, this is an EP, it's already short enough as it is without filler. But regardless of any of that, this thing is awesome. Like, this legit may be one of the better things to be released this year, and it feels weird saying that about an EP, but it's tight, so tight. If you've got 15 minutes, go for it. Thanks, Sorry, Sure gets 5 crowdfunding pledges out of 5. I'm serious, if that goes up, let me know, I will totally drop something into that. I have no idea who Steven Wilson is. No, I mean, I know who he is now, I did research on this album and whatnot, but going into this album to listen, no, not really. I didn't really know who the hell this guy was supposed to be. And apparently, since I'm someone that's into prog rock, this is a cardinal sin of the most blasphemous known to that of God, so a man burn him at the stake! I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys. I just never came across him. I never heard any Porcupine Tree growing up, and nobody else in my circle of friends or family had either, so I don't know, I just missed this train. What am I supposed to tell ya? I was never exposed to him. I do remember back when my dad had satellite radio, actually, back in high school. They would sometimes play Porcupine Tree from time to time, so I recognized the name when I looked this band up, but I don't know, anything I ever heard from them never stuck with me. Hell, anytime that band name would show up on my radio, I would often just change it and look for more ska. Apparently the dude has a lot of success as a solo artist too, in addition to his wide catalog with Porcupine Tree, and I do remember getting a few requests for his last album that was apparently really good. I don't know, I've just never been privy to a lot of this guy's work. I feel like a great big dum-dum for not having the encyclopedic knowledge some of you guys seem to have on this guy, but I'm sorry, I don't. Would you like to ask me more about the rock I live under? It's quite cozy. And before you take that as some kind of preemptive judgment as to my opinions towards this album, relax, I do not hate this thing. Not at all, I rather dug it. It was a lot poppier than I was expecting it to be. This dude's prog chops really show through exquisitely. His guitar work is exceptionally pretty, and man does this guy know how to use a synthesizer to accentuate things. This may sound like an odd comparison. Again, forgive me, I'm coming from a place of ignorance here, but in places, especially in the beginning, I kept getting vibes of Rush's 80s synth period. Later stuff like Grace Under Pressure and Hold Your Fire. And before you jump back into those comments, yes, I mean that as a compliment. Rush's synth period was glorious, if only for the outfits alone. What I mean is, there's an abundance of melody and catchiness to this album. It's up-tempo for the most part, and it leans on the upbeat side of things, which, given all the Steven Wilson memes people have sent me recently, I was very surprised to see that. I was expecting way gloomier here, but it does shift gears a bit. Around when People Who Eat Darkness comes on, the music gets a bit more dissonant and morose feeling. Not to an extreme. I mean, I just got done reviewing Bella Morte and Roger Waters, for God's sakes. It never goes that crazy. But the more melancholy side I was expecting does eventually show up. And it wasn't the smoothest of transitions when it finally did. And a lot like a lot of other prog acts, Steven Wilson can't help but be a little self-indulgent in places. Hello, Detonation. After listening to this album, though, I see what all the Steven Wilson hype is about, and I see why I got so many requests for this one. I still don't know if I'm wholeheartedly into this album. I've only given it 2 or 3 listens so far. I feel like this is one of those albums that I need to grow on me a little bit more, but I mean, that's true of a lot of good prog records, so yeah, I would say that's a great sign. Hey, I certainly like it a lot more than all those Porcupine Tree songs I used to skip over back in the day, and I can say this thing has definitely exceeded the expectations I had for it, far and above. As ignorant as they might be. To the Bone gets 4 Siriuses out of 5 XMs. God damn it, what is it with you guys and your awesome pop-punk recommendations? Is it just me, or has it been a really good year for the poppier side of punk? I've stumbled across and even reviewed a good share of kick-ass pop-punk this year, and ooh, is this a sign we're getting a resurgence? Oh, fuck yeah, man, I'd be down for that. Given how fucking miserable everything's been lately, I wouldn't mind coasting a second wave of this stuff for sure. Well, the good pop-punk trend keeps moving along with Grayscale, a band from Philly with a very unfortunate name. Come on, you don't name your kick-ass pop-punk band after the most drab, lifeless series of colors on the spectrum. If you guys ever do release a mediocre album, I promise that name is gonna bite you in the ass. Whatever. Overall, I really dug what the guys were doing here. The drums on this thing were nice and varied. We got some excellent vocal performances and a good mixture of styles and soundscapes to keep this thing pretty interesting. The album has the right amount of bouncier songs mixed with a decent amount of slower stuff too. This is one of those pop-punk bands that isn't afraid to break out the acoustic guitars every once in a while, but it sounds like they know how to handle themselves. It's a pretty solid release, all told. That's also a wee bit of a strike against them. It's solid for sure, but guys, I just got done reviewing Waster here, and also stuff like the new Creeper, the new Newfound Glory, the new Neck Deep, just this has been a damn good year for pop punk. And while this thing is solid, it doesn't do quite enough to separate itself from the rest of the pack in some respects. Again, maybe in a less active year, but 2017, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a good release that I think any of you with an interest in pop punk should definitely try on. But I know not all of you listening to this are into pop punk, and I have to consider that crowd here too. And would I recommend putting this over something like As It Is or Menzingers or the like? Well, I'd put it over As It Is, but definitely not over Menzingers. If you aren't already neck deep in this scene, you people pay me to do this, then I don't know if this will be the album that converts you. But what it does pretty well. Again, this is a tough year to have to compete if you're a poppier punk act. These guys have proven, though, that they can stand out amongst the big dogs. This is their second full length, too, so it's nice to see they've avoided the old sophomore slump. So, yeah, this is a group worth keeping your eye on. Adornment gets 4 I'd hate to be 5 seconds of summer right nows out of 5. Let's take a break from the sunshiny shores of pop punk though, shall we? Let's get metal. Chrysalis. Yep, this is a train y'all need to get on. It's metal, but I have trouble describing what else it could fall under. It's maybe more metalcore than straight up blah blah, but the thing is, this album, it does some very impressive dynamic gymnastics. When it goes heavy, it stampedes across your body like your name was Mufasa. The instrumentation is pure crunch and severely impactful, and Jesse Burton's vocals are just absolutely blood-soaked. He's got one of those higher register screams that's just butter to listen to against some nice thick distortion and thunderous blast beats. But he also works well when the band cleans up and does more melody focused stuff. This band likes to break out the clean singing a lot more than other similar sounding groups I've heard, but Jesse's definitely got the pipes to carry it. And when they do turn the distortion down, these guys are still able to crank out melodies that can be eerily blissful in moments. And the tiniest little keyboard accentuations here and there really help make this release hit home. This is definitely a group that fits the old iconic saying, get you a man that can do both. It's so pretty when they clean up, but so blissfully savage when they do get intense, and it's all coated in this sort of gothy, sort of sinister chocolate coating that makes it so scrumptiously dark and evil sounding. It's kinda like Deftones by way of Creeper. It's got the unafraid to do their own thing vibe of musical construction, but the knowledge and ability to pull off good simple hooks of something a bit more radio friendly. And the production here really complements the style of music they're making. And when I looked up the producer, Ulrich Wild, I saw a lot of nu metal work on his resume, but it's a lot of the good nu metal work, don't worry people. And this was also the guy that brought us the Death Clock albums, so I just knew, oh okay, yeah, Ulrich here definitely brought out the best in these guys. If you're looking for something dark and heavy, but also atmospheric at times, and very pretty and clean sounding, this is definitely something you need to add to your repertoire. I was really feeling this album all the way through. I don't want to say album of the year contender necessarily, because I've already said that shit way too much this year and it's gonna get me in trouble again once January rolls around, but this is definitely an album to watch out for. It's good stuff. Reminder gets 4.5 strings around your fingers out of 5. Oh, you know, there's always that guy. As long as I've had Patreon requests, I've always had that guy, the one who puts down $20 of his hard-earned money that he's so generous and awesome to give to the show, and uses his 1 3-month opportunity to fire an album my way that they know I will absolutely despise. Oh, it's downright sinister. But hey, I'm an internet reviewer, you know? My pain is profitable. So this requester sent this album to me, not so much as an outright troll, but more of a, hey, I have a feeling you won't like this, but I'd still be interested to hear your thoughts kind of way. And, well, he sent me a rap rock nu metal band, so he certainly wasn't wrong in his assumption. Insert Metalocalypse clip here, insert From Ashes to New joke here. You guys know how this works by now. You know, it always boggles my mind that bands this dated still exist. Yeah, nu metal is still a thing, but even its sound has evolved and changed into something. Dirty Machine, though? They clearly haven't. This is old school nu metal, and they are proud of it. For some baffling reason, they have a DJ. And he's more than just set dressing. He actually does a lot of scratch work on this thing, and it's very much the scratch work of old school Linkin Park, old school Incubus, old school Limp Bizkit. Hell, this album even has its own scratch track. Really, an honest-to-God instrumental scratch track. Fuck, when was the last time I heard one of those on an album? I don't even think From Ashes to New tried that shit. Oh, and did my mentioning Limp Bizkit earlier just send a chill up your spine? Well then, you can skip the rest of this review because you've heard all you need to hear. This band worships at the altar of Limp Bizkit. Their singer raps and shouts over songs, and he's got a... Oh, there's no easy way to put this. Awkward white boy cadence. I mean, when you look up to this guy as an inspiration, that's bound to happen. And yeah, it's not what I'd call fun to listen to. Unlike Limp Bizkit, the instrumentation apart from the scratching is just not there. This is Drop Tuning City on Bar Chord Lane across from Weak Sauce Boulevard. Say whatever you want about Limp Bizkit and Fred Durst, but the guys playing the actual instruments in that band did have some mighty impressive chops to help stem the tidal wave of douche that was their frontman. But these guys... Oh, I'm sorry, but they cannot write and play for shit. It's boring, bland, and these hooks would have been laughed out of the room in 2002, let alone 2017. The thing is, there is a lot I don't like about this album. No fucking way am I gonna recommend it to you. But is it atrocious? I don't think so. I mean, this thing is very far from good, but also... I've tackled shittier albums from this genre. Do I hate this thing more than, say, Veracity or From Ashes to New? Hell no. Those artists are so bad, even my younger, nu metal loving self wouldn't have fallen for their abysmal shit. But this... Oh, real talk, if I was still like 13... Yeah, I could see past me picking this up. Even he probably wouldn't love it, but it would be something that appealed to him. And people that do have the stomach for this super dated kind of nu metal, believe me, you could definitely do worse. It's not getting a good score from me, but I don't know if I even have a place for this on my worst of the year list either. These guys aren't very talented, but it's not devoid of charm, it's not without its bright spots, and yeah, I would fucking love it if this were the worst album I had to review this year, Jesus. Discord gets 2 voice chatting services out of 5. So, fun fact, this group apparently used to be black metal. I mean, they are Norwegian, I guess that makes sense. Hell, I think being in a black metal band for some period of your life is actually a requirement for Norwegian citizenship at this point. But when I saw this as one of the first descriptors for this group, I had a feeling I would be in for something brutal, heavy, and morbid, and I got Duran Duran instead? What the hell? Okay, I kid. The black metal days have obviously been long behind these guys, and they've moved on to braver, bolder soundscapes. These days, particularly what I heard on Assassination of Julius Caesar, I'd say they're more dark wave or black ambient maybe. The pitch black mood and feel of musical composition is still there. This music feels intensely dark and ominous, but it's not done through heaviness or distortion. Instead, cold, sterile synth work and sweeping orchestral movements loom insidiously overhead, giving everything a threatening, unsettling, uneasy vibe. These guys may not have kept the black metal sound, attitude, or appearance, but they do a damn good job at maintaining the aesthetics. For a band that's so not black metal, they pull this off better than a decent deal of black metal bands do. This atmosphere is pretty well helped by the lyrics too. As the title implies, this thing is all about navel-gazing at ancient Rome. The lyrics touch pretty directly on historical themes, such as the festival of Nemeralia, the myths of Romulus, Remus, and Oedipus, Nero's reign, and what a giant prick he was during all of that. But there's also a lot of references to more recent history. There's literally a song in here that references Princess Diana and her sexual drive. One of the songs is about the assassination attempt of Pope John Paul II, and one song called 1969 is literally about 1969. Take that, Billy Corgan. This album is making an attempt to draw parallels between the fall of Rome and modern society, at least as a means to establish a dark tone and I mean, given how shit's been going down recently, I can see why they'd be pessimistic, and B, they do a pretty good job at it, although this thing has a few small issues here and there. Like with a lot of more avant-garde stuff, and hell, even a lot of black metal stuff, songs tend to go on for longer than they really should. Yeah, I know that's kind of the name of the game here, but man, so many times on this album I would be listening to the tail end of a song and thinking to myself, okay, this song ended like 3 minutes ago, why the hell are we still going? And some of the more modern references aren't as delicately weaved into the narrative as the rest of the lyrical themes are. Look, I'm sorry, I'm just not necessarily trying to think a princess die like that. Overall, this is a damn nice, avant-garde, dark, poppy treat. If it seems like something you'd be down with, you should totally give it a shot. The Assassination of Julius Caesar gets 4 Caligulas out of 5. Again, we have a band whose legacy somewhat betrays them here. This Danish group apparently started out as a 70s punk outfit called the Sods, but did not stay that way for very long. These guys went post-punk really goddamn quick, and since the 80s, these guys appear to have been wallowing around in various flavors of post-punk and gothic rock. These guys have been around a long time. And apparently they built a hell of a legacy for themselves, but this is actually the first time I've had a proper go-around with them, and look, I always warn you guys about requesting stuff here for review. The only thing your $20 gets you is honesty. I didn't set this up just so I could suck off all your senpais. If I don't like something, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, and yeah, this is one of those cases where I did not like this album very much. Ugh. I said this group wallows around in post-punk and gothic rock, but that really isn't a great descriptor of the sound they've created here. This is doing its own thing. It's dark, heady, and creepy. It's meant to be crazy atmospheric, but also very dank and surreal feeling. The closest thing I can really compare it to is maybe Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds? I have a feeling big Nick Cave fans are probably going to be a bit more forgiving of this thing than I am. It has that relentless sense of doom and gloom that Nick is so good at expressing, but oh, this thing isn't nearly as good as the Seeds, man. If anything, it feels like maybe they're trying to rip one too many pages out of old Nick's book. I mean, for one thing, Nick Cave is a hell of a performer and a crazy gifted vocalist. Cave songs can crawl like crazy. Sometimes it takes them a hell of a long time to get going, but usually Nick is so good at bringing it back around and crescendoing into something bombast and interesting that you don't mind the slow as molasses buildup. This album, it's got a lot of build-up, but not much payoff. This thing bored me to tears. I'm sorry, it just did. It was Nick Cave without the charisma. It was Tom Waits without the character or soul. And this vocalist, oh, I did not care for his delivery here. It sounds like he's deliberately trying to make his voice sound more gravelly and monster-like than it really is. He's aiming for Leonard Cohen, but sounding more like Dr. Claw. I'll get you next time, Gadget Yelskavel Pulser. And this album just meanders all over the goddamn place. It has very little sense of direction or majesty or scope or introspection. It's just and again, I'm a noob to this band, so maybe I'm just not as well educated on them to get what they were attempting here, but I dug around in their past catalog here and there just out of curiosity, and man, most of the stuff I dug up I rather enjoyed. Their back catalog, as eclectic as it can be, appears to have much more life, energy, and ideas in it. This feels like a bit of a stopgap. Again, this is just the new kids' take on things, but one thing I will say from the new kids' perspective, do not use this album as your first exposure to this band. I mean, unless you're just really into mediocre Nick Cave, I guess. Stor Langsom Stjerne gets 2.5, apologies for mispronunciation, out of 5. again with the kick-ass pop-punk recommendations. And this is another great band from Great Britain. Seriously, what is it with the UK and really, really good pop-punk lately? I guess if I had to go through Brexit, I'd probably want something really bright and sunny to listen to cheer my ass up too. The Gospel Youth's Always Lose is a really impressive album, especially for a debut. Seriously, if these guys go on tour with Waster and Neck Deep, catch that motherfucking show, son! And while these guys are definitely pop-punk, I'd say it's a different flavor of the genre. This isn't so much the Blink-182 Newfound Glory style of pop-punk as much as the Jimmy Eat World, Ataris, or Yellow Card variety. Less skater shoes, more integrity blues, you know what I mean? It's not quite as simplistic as the more stereotypical bands of their genre. It's much more multifaceted and vibrant. These guys really know how to write a pretty sounding melody, and their lyrics are very emotional and moving and from the heart. This is one of those pop-punk acts that really aren't afraid to take themselves seriously, but again, they're good at it, so it's not like you mind. Again, they're a lot like Jimmy Eat World and the Ataris in that respect. This is something that can be pulled off right, and these guys do it. And my god, I have got to give serious props to their vocalist. This guy is a singer. Not just a vocalist, not just a front man, but a singer. A damn good one, too. He reminds me a bit of Brendan Urie, of all people. This guy has a pretty damn high range, a lot of control, and great use of vibrato. I know that maybe the idea of having Brendan Urie singing for a Jimmy Eat World style band seems a little odd, but believe me, it works. It works especially well here. If you like Waster, McCafferty, Grayscale, or any of the umpteen million pop-punk acts that have released stuff this year, these guys are absolutely worth digging up. This is something that needs to be on your radar. This is some of the stronger pop-punk I've heard all year. And if bands like this are a sign of a new resurgence, then this second wave is gonna be really fucking sweet. Always Lose gets 4.5, so long a story is, out of 5. Let's wrap this up with a little more metalcore, shall we? Wage War. Yeah, now that's a good name for a metalcore group, isn't it? Ooh, and they're from Ocala. Oh, that's the same town as A Day to Remember. Go Patriots! Haha, seriously, I hope Irma didn't fuck you guys up too badly. Anyway, Wage War. This is some good, thick, heavy, punishing shit, man. I really loved what I heard on Deadweight. Again, nice job avoiding that sophomore slump, fellas. The rhythm section for this band is very impressive. Their drummer is utilizing that double bass pedal in some fun and interesting ways, and the bass work, while not reinventing the wheel too much, was very meaty and pounding. It gave the music a tight and strong as hell foundation to stand on. The guitars were also well executed here too, nice and crunchy with lots of little lead accentuations and clean deviations peppered all throughout the songs to add a little color to all the fuzz and crunch. And the vocals on this thing are really great too. Britton Bond has a nice scratchy howl for their unclean vocal section, and he's very well complemented by Cody Quistad's clean vocals. The two work off of each other very well and seem to have a lot of chemistry in their performances. It's a good balance of both styles. Overall, the sound is deep, thick, and absolutely pulverizing. This is the kind of music that keeps your ass bouncing in the pit all night, and god, man, I really enjoyed it. It's a unique blend of metalcore and melodic metal with just the right tinges of hardcore punk and thrash in there. Hell, in certain places, particularly Stitches, this album can almost get new metal-ish, but don't take that the wrong way. They do it in a fantastic way. Not a, you know. This is something I would actually pass on to you new metal types out there. I can promise you, you will probably get a lot more mileage out of this than you will with Dirty Machine. These guys have been gaining a lot of buzz here lately, and after hearing this album, yeah, I get why. I can almost guarantee that we'll be hearing more from them in the future. I'm psyched to see what's next for these guys. This is a very, very solid effort. Deadweight gets 4.5. Seriously, I hope you guys are okay. Out of 5. Hey guys, thanks again for watching part 2 of the Patreon Blitz catch-up. Part 3, I'll try to have out within the next week or two. Again, I want it all finished by September, but I've been getting more requests lately, so there might be another entry. I don't know, it all depends. But thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for the next part. Cheers.